Hi everyone, welcome to Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel and I can be found pretty much everywhere as well for pearls. This is episode 58 and I am coming to you from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia. I think it's February, let me just check because I don't want to give you the wrong dates. It's February 23rd, 2017. And I have kind of a packed show today, so we'll see what I can get to and what I can't get to. I'm hoping that I can share everything with you, but I don't want to run out of time and have the show be so long like they used to be, because they were just too long for me to edit and too long for you guys to watch. So hopefully we can get through everything. Thank you to everybody who is a returning viewer and who is coming back to the show for the umpteenth time. And to those who are new and just checking out the show, thank you so much for giving it a shot and for coming over here and seeing what's up with this place. I also want to extend an extra special thank you to those who are Patreon subscribers to the show. You're the ones that keep the show on the air week after week, month after month. So thank you to those who are Patreon subscribers. If you would like to learn more about Patreon and about the Patreon campaign, please head over to patreon.com/WelfordPearls. We awarded a mug to Emily last week and Annie got a mug last month. So if you want to know more about that, please check out the reward tiers. And also episode 2 of Woolen Spinning Radio has been released. So if you haven't seen that yet in your Patreon feed, for those who are Patreons, please head back and have a look because it is there and you'll be able to have a listen to episode 2. And that is the podcast for Patreon subscribers that I make for you guys. And that's never released out to the public. So that is just for Patreon subscribers, that podcast. And it's about 30 to 45 minutes of audio. I don't want to start coughing. I've still got my cold. I'm trying not to cough. So we'll see how that goes. I have some sips. I have one whip and I have some FOs to show you. So we're just going to jump right into the show. And at the end, I have a book review. And actually, I'm not really going to do it as a book review per se. I'm actually going to talk about what I think are the staple books that every spinner coming to spinning or who's been a spinner for a while and is looking to grow needs in his or her library. So I hope you'll stay tuned for that, because there's a giveaway at the end. All right, so for spins in progress or sips, I actually am only going to talk about 2. I have more than that, or maybe 3 if we have time. I have more than that in progress. For whatever reason, I have a spin on pretty much every wheel that is like that's not a demo wheel. I have to keep my demo wheels free and empty at this point because of Fibers West coming up in March, which is a local fiber event to the Fraser Valley, Lower Mainland here in Vancouver. My Mach 3 will be on demo at the show and you will be able to sit and try it if you want to. So please come and find me. I will be in the Crafty Jack's booth with my friend Katrina. It will also be for sale. So if anybody's interested, please get in touch with me. So other than that wheel, I have a spin on every other wheel and I feel like I have a spin on every spindle. I've not only gotten my mojo back, I can't keep up with my ideas and what I want to do. So the first one that I have going is a 50/50 camel silk fiber. And this is something I've been coveting and hoarding for quite a long time. And I decided to take the plunge and to spin it because I sort of got this idea one night that I wanted to spin it. And I don't really know why I just all of a sudden had to spin this fiber. I'm not really sure why. So this is from West Coast Color and Carding, and I just showed you her card. And it's incredibly silky and drapey. It's this crazy, it's kind of like a yellowy green, sort of neon-y type color. It's quite bright. This fiber is very flyaway. It's just unbelievable. So I'm trying not to manipulate it too much. And then it also has sort of these purpley blues in it as well that make it just a really beautiful fiber. When Lynn dyed this, she left a lot of the creamy natural fiber undyed. And so what I'm finding is happening is that as I'm spinning it, it's becoming more and more pastel and more muted, which is perfect. And I'm actually spinning this over the fold off the top. So there is a video on my YouTube channel that you can look at to see what that means if you're not familiar with that. But basically you take roughly a staple length and you fold it over your pointer finger And I like to hold with my thumb underneath against my middle finger and my ring finger. And I'm actually spinning it off the top like this. So I'm actually spinning the fiber from the top of my finger. I left my control card over there, but I did bring my other spin in progress card over here. So you'll get an idea of what my cards look like. I'll try to take a picture of my card and I'll insert it at some point so that you can see what that looks like. But because this fiber is so flyaway and it's so silky, and with the camel and the silk mixed together at a 50-50 blend, I am finding that this is spinning more like a silk than like camel. But it's just so incredibly soft and so incredibly flyaway and fine that the less I handle it and the less that I manipulate it and the more I just anchor it and spin it, the better. And I will show you next week where I've gotten with this spin, because I have 2 bumps of this. And I'm not totally sure what I'm going to do, because I'm spinning at lace weight, and I don't really think I need 2 big bumps of it in lace weight. Like I don't need like 1,000 yards of lace weight. So I might do something with the one half and then do something with the other half. And then I might weave with part of it and knit with part of it and kind of treat it as like 2 separate projects. So I'm not totally sure, but I will keep you guys posted. So that is on my sidekick. I'm spinning it on the super high whirl. And I'm spinning it on the larger groove of the 2. So I think that's like 22-1 or something like that. And I'm finding that every time I drop down to a lower ratio, it just doesn't have enough twist to hold it together. And then every time I go down any further and go to a higher ratio that's higher than about 22-1, it's getting ropey. And that's no good either. So I've kind of found this sweet spot, and I'm spinning off the top of my finger. My next project is actually part of my Spin the Bin. This is part of the Completely Twisted and Arbitrary Spin the Bin, which is a Ravelry group. If you're not familiar with it, go and look it up. It's a great Ravelry group. I'm spinning some Spunky Eclectic. This is Old Club. I have no idea what the month is because I left the sheet downstairs. Oh no, that's not true. I have it right here. This is Little Bluebird from October of 2015. And this was Romney. Romney is a long wool, and I'm actually going to talk about this at the end in the book review about sort of how I decided to spin this. But basically I divided the top, I folded it in half and I split it vertically. So this is half of the comb top, and then the other half is actually downstairs on my Lendrum. And I told you I would show you what my control cards look like. So this is what my control cards look like now. They've kind of morphed and changed over the last couple of months. Basically, I make any notes that I need to make on the card. So it says that I'm going to spin it worsted, 2-ply from comb top on my Lendrum. I started spinning it when I wrote this at 6-1, but I'm actually spinning it at 8-1 because I was finding it 6-1. When I pulled it off the bobbin to do the ply back test, I was losing too much twist. So I am spinning it at 8-1 and I'm getting this result, which is perfect. So this is actually a ply back test that I made when I first started spinning. And this sort of keeps me accountable to what I'm looking for. And then this is a sample of what my singles look like and the fineness of my singles. So I was able to, based on this, calculate my wraps per inch of my singles, which is 32. When you are spinning to wraps per inch, so let's say for me here, I'll just use this as an example. I really want a lace weight yarn. I want something above 22 wraps per inch, or sorry, I would like something to be that's above 18 wraps per inch. That was kind of my goal and what I had in my mind. So what you can do is take your ply back sample and use a spinner's control card. And actually I don't have one within, oh, I think I do actually. This is one of my old ones, and I'm not super keen on this, but basically you can run this along your sample here, and you sort of go, as you go, each of these lines represents a wraps per inch. I prefer my Sukoplocky control card, but I actually don't have one within reaching distance. But I know that this is 32 wraps per inch, and sure enough, when I put it up against the 32, it actually matches quite well. It's maybe closer to 36 wraps per inch, and I had actually, when I've been calculating it, I was kind of going back and forth between the two. I suspect it's like 34 wraps per inch-ish. When you are making a 2-ply, you want to spin to, so I wanted my finished yarn to be something above 18 wraps per inch, so a light fingering or a lace weight. So I was hoping for like 22 wraps per inch of my finished yarn. So you want to spin to 3 halves of the original of your singles. Your singles need to be 3 halves of what you're going for your finished yarn. So to get a roughly 22, which I think this is, yeah, it's showing up here at roughly, sort of looks like somewhere between 20 and 22. Yeah, I'd say this is probably 22. You can see that there. So I'm spinning it at 32. So basically what I do to figure out if it's 3 halves is I take the, I'm going to put a link into the show notes, and then you'll be able to see it, and I won't waste time fumbling around trying to explain it to you. So look for the link in the show notes at wellforpearls.com, and that will show you how to calculate 3 halves. And I think for a 3-ply, you want to go to another half. So I'll link to all that in the show notes. And then I'm not fumbling around trying to explain something that, the reason why I always pause when I start to try to explain this stuff is that it's easier to do it in person. And I don't want to mislead people, because sometimes you can say stuff meaning one thing, but it gets interpreted as something else. So let me put a link in the show notes to that, and that will help you to understand how to spin based on wraps per inch of what you want your finished yarn to be. So that is that project. Hopefully I will have a couple of bobbins of finished yarns for next week to show you, of finished singles. The last spin in progress that I have is actually my combo spin, and I wasn't going to show this to you guys, but I'm actually making really fast progress on it. And the reason is because I don't have a spindle project to take with me right now. And so this is still the first Turtle Made spindle, but it's filling up quite nicely. And I'm through probably about a dozen of these so far. I've been carrying around my little bag with the strips of fiber in it, and then every time I finish off the bag, I go and grab some more, throw them in, and keep spinning. So this is still the second sort of batch, if you will, and I've just been working my way through it. So this is my combo spin that I showed you guys last week. So if you're wondering about more or wanting to know how I prepped that spin, just go back to episode 57, because I talked about this project then. And I'm using Hello Yarn created by LCB, and 2 braids of Nest Fiber Studios. And there's Targi in there, Rambouillet, and 2 hanks of BFL. So it'll be quite an interesting spin when it's finished. I'm curious to see how that yarn turns out, because it's a bit of a hodgepodge. For finished spins, for FOs, I have 2 projects, and I think what I might do just in lieu of time is just show them to you. And I might talk about this one next week. So this is my yarn ink that I finished. This is also part of my spin the bin for this year. I was going to ply these. I was going to ply them together. I'm just going to talk about it now. I was spun 2 separate bobbins. I was going to ply them together. The label on this said that it was superwash merino. I'm pretty sure it was 100% merino, which is totally fine. But the fiber was so badly compacted that it got to the point with the 1/2. I think half of the fiber was okay when I stripped it vertically, because the one bobbin actually drafted quite well, and I can even feel the difference between the two. It drafted quite well. I've ended up with quite an even singles. It's a lovely yarn. It went quite well. But when I went to do the second bobbin, sorry, I've got hair stuck. When I went to do the second bobbin, that was the side of the fiber that was quite compacted. And by the end of it, my fingers hurt. It was really hard to draft. The singles was quite uneven. I was really disappointed with it. And it kind of had felt like I had struggled with the project all the way through. It was kind of one of those projects that I felt like I was sort of fighting with right from the get-go, because of the fiber being a bit compacted and then trying to draft it. And Hours of sitting at your wheel, reefing on fiber doesn't feel very good. And if this wasn't a gradient, I would have just called it a day and carded it up and done a carded prep, but I didn't want to because it was a gradient and I already had the one bobbin done. So what I did was I decided to leave it as a singles. I inserted some photos at the beginning of the show to show you sort of what was in store for the show. So you saw it already, but basically, I wound it off onto my skein winders, and I've ended up with roughly about 500 yards of yarn, which is pretty good, partially because it's singles. What I did was I got it wet and I fold it. I went from hot, boiling hot water into ice cold with ice cubes in it, ice water back and forth multiple times with both skeins, and I rested it in the hot water for quite a few minutes. I even agitated it in the hot water, and then I went to the cold, did the same thing, back and forth, quite a number of times. I lost count. And then I towel dried it, and then I put it in our dryer. So I beat this yarn up like you wouldn't believe. And it came off my wheels. Both of these came off already almost balanced. So all that water and getting it wet and everything, it was already pretty neutral and pretty balanced. There wasn't a lot of twist in this yarn. Now it's even more there's just no twist in it. And I think my twist angle on this is it looks like it's less than 20 degrees for sure. It's a very, very, very relaxed twist angle. The yarn is incredibly strong. I've been taking apart different sections and really reefing on it to try to get it apart, but there's no way. So I'm really curious to see how this wears and what it sort of ends up being like to work with, because it's still incredibly soft. It's got a teeny tiny bit of a halo from being so beaten up and from going into the dryer. I did leave it in the dryer until it was fully dry. It wasn't like it went in for 5 minutes or something. I put it in for half an hour. I kept checking on it. It did come out quite crimpy. It really kind of looked like it looked like it was beaten up. But I just smoothed it out with my hands and I hung it up and I left it for a day or two just hanging there dry, and it just sort of slowly relaxed and it fell back into shape. So this yarn is sort of a what not to do. It worked out, and I know a lot of you sitting there are going to be like, yeah, but you still ended up with beautiful yarn and it's so great and everything, but it was definitely a labor of love, and it really hurt my hands to draft. And whether I would go back and do it again, I'm not sure. I maybe would actually just put this fiber onto the drum carder, forget about the gradient, just card in some color, and because my hand was quite sore after. However, having a felted singles yarn like this is pretty awesome, and it turned out really quite well. So moral of the story, if you keep at it, it will work out. Hopefully. The other thing I finished was this gorgeous spindle spun yarn that I've been working on since basically the New Year's. This was from my friend Nina of Fuzzy Love Knots down in Santiago in Chile, and I just love this yarn. I just love how it turned out. I have two little skeins here actually because I plied them on my spindles as I finished it off. So there's actually two skeins. But I just love what this turned out, how this turned out. There's local wool in here, merino, a little bit of Corriedale, local silk and oil, lots of texture. It's interesting with the hits of pink. I'm really excited to make something out of this. And I'm actually thinking about a pair of fingerless mitts for myself. I just love how this turned out. So that was a big win this week. And it's soft. It's not... it'll wear well because it's it's not completely merino, so I don't mind making mitts out of it, but it just it's just got a nice drape to a nice bounce. I really like it. I'm quite smitten with this yarn. For whips in progress, I have my Fireside pullover. So this is out of my local CVM Suffolk Cross. I was really hoping this would be finished this week. I'm only going to flash it because it's not done. I had it finished. I had it bound off. My two sleeves were done. And I realized that this sleeve was a full inch smaller in radius than this sleeve. I don't know how that happened. I ended up with 5 fewer stitches. So when I went back and counted how many stitches I had picked up and started with, I had 5 fewer. I have no idea how that happened. But I re-picked up along the bottom here so that it matched the other side, and then I had the right number of stitches. So I think I just didn't pick up enough. And this will be hopefully finished next week. So that is my Fireside pullover. This is a pattern by my friend Jane Richmond, who is local to me, and is a really, really wonderful pattern designer. So if you haven't seen this pullover, definitely check it out. It's part of a collection with Shannon Cook, and the book is called Within. So I will hopefully have that done next week, and I'll have a tale of how the lanolin washed out once I got it scoured, because that is something that I've been dealing with that whole time with this project, and I am so sick of having all this lanolin on my hands when I pick it up. My other finished object that I have today, and I kind of left it till the end because I don't want to talk about it for too long, is a woven project that I did. So this was the disaster that I mentioned last week. This was a experiment on my new rigid heddle that I just bought, and it didn't turn out. So I put it away for a week. I wrote a very extensive blog post about it that I'm just in the process of editing and will be up in the next couple weeks. So if you're interested in learning more about this project, please just hang on for that blog post. But basically, like, it was all, it didn't lay flat. It was all wavy. It was a big disaster. So I took the fabric and I felted it. I washed it and I threw it in our dryer. And as you can see, this is already cut up. But the cool thing about it, so this was coarse spun and thick and thin yarn. I made a project bag and I am so super stinking happy with it. So it turned out really well. The tutorial that I used is a little bit fiddly. My mom's made quite a few of these and she's sort of tweaked and perfected this project pattern. And I didn't talk to her before I made the pattern, and I should have, because she had a couple of really good suggestions. But I have an awesome finished object for my showing woven coarse spun yarn after you felt it, because it definitely looks different than, say, something else would have. Like, you can see some of the texture in here of what the coarse spun looks like. Obviously it's kind of, I feel like I lost the yarn in felting it, but the colors are still preserved, and I've ended up with a really cool bag. The fabric is very thick. I wouldn't recommend doing this for this type of fabric all the time. There's a lot of bulk in the seams. It's a bulky bag, but because I made it a little bit longer than the pattern, I can actually fit an entire sweater knit in here, which is awesome because I don't have any really big project bags like this. So in that sense, that worked out really well. So that will be in our Guild Gallery show this summer. I was doing Sia's for coarse spun. So based with my weaving from last week and this finished bag, my gallery show is sort of complete. So I just need to do my write-up and everything. So I am really happy with how that turned out. All right, let's get to books because I don't want to not talk about this, and then that'll wrap up the show. So as you know, Spinning to Dye and Knit has been, I was involved with this book. I spun for the book. I talked to Felicia a lot about her ideas for the book. I modeled for the book. I've had a copy of this book since July of 2016. So I have read this book cover to cover a couple of times. There is a lot in this book, and I'm not sure that me sitting here waxing poetic about it, because I am very biased. I think this is a great book, is necessarily a great idea. There's a lot of dye techniques in here. There's a lot of different ways to spin color in here. There's a lot of how to manage them when you're knitting. So this isn't just a book for spinners. This is definitely a book for knitters as well. People who are looking to knit with their hand spun yarns and maybe haven't delved into that yet. People who want to buy hand spun yarns and want to knit with them. People who just want to start dyeing in general. People who want to dye hand painted yarns and knit with them and don't want to spin at all. This is sort of the whole gamut. There's a couple of great patterns in here. It's just a really great book. There's even different, she shows you different, I wonder if I can find it. She even shows you what dye techniques look like on different bases of yarn. So you can see if you dye on one base, what it looks like when you do the exact same dye technique on a different type of yarn, a different base. So whether it's merino or a, and then she shows it next to another one. Let me see if I can find it. All of the dyeing techniques in here, I know, like I'm aware of them. I don't necessarily know how to do them, but all of them I know how to do, or I've heard of them, sorry. So there's nothing like too sort of weird. It's nothing I don't think that you can do. It's all quite straightforward. And then, of course, the section that I was most excited about was the chapter 3, spinning color. This section talks a lot about working with your hand spun. It talks about optical mixing. She talks about different thicknesses of your yarn, so different grist, your yards per pound. So this is quite a thick yarn and what it looks like versus a much thinner yarn. She talks about when you divide up your comb top, how that changes the color, pre-drafting. It just goes on and on and on. This book is chock-a-block full of managing and manipulating color. It's not just, she doesn't only show you how to make color really pretty, she also shows you how to manipulate it, which is, I think, two very different things. So what I wanted to say was, if you were to have 3 books in your library and you could only have 3 books because of space issues or cost issues, or because you're just a minimalist and you only want to have the bare essentials, or because you feel like you don't need a lot of books, or you want to have a lot of ebooks and digital books, but you only want to have a few actual like physical books in your library, if you are sort of looking for 3 books that will give you sort of a little bit of everything and give you sort of the foundations, I guess, is what I'm looking for. I think, personally for me, the 3 books that I come back to again and again and again and again are these 3. I come back to Yarnitecture by Jillian Moreno. I come back to The Spinner's Book of Fleece by Beth Smith. And I come back to Dying to Spin and Knit. The reason why I come back to, so I always go to Yarnitecture first. I'll be totally honest about that. Yarnitecture has been one of those books in my library that I didn't think I would use all the time, and I do. I think it's an awesome book. I did a review of it back in November or December of 2016, and I think because I had only just barely skimmed the surface of this book and I had just only read it through once, it wasn't enough. And I really can see the whole premise of the book is to build a foundation. It's to give you all of the tools that you need to be able to literally build the yarn that you want. The trick, I guess, behind that is that she gives you all of these different chapters of how to do that. And then as you become more experienced and you're sitting at the wheel and you want to learn more and you're doing more, the reality is you start to want to know even more. And the 2 chapters, I think, where that really happens for the average spinner is in managing color and in managing the breed specific yarns. So, how does a Romney spin differently from a 50-50 camel silk, like what I'm doing right now? 2 very different fibers, 2 very different spinning techniques, 2 very different setups on my wheel. How do you manage that? How do you rectify that? So Jillian kind of gives you the foundation to recognize that those are 2 totally different fibers. I've got 2 totally different color management techniques going on with those 2 yarns. And she gives you all of the foundational pieces to how to approach those 2 fibers. And then Felicia fills it out even more and gives you even more information as you become more and more confident in using color. She also gives you some of those baby steps and that support in those baby steps as to what to do in those sort of, oh, I don't know, I don't want to wreck this, I'm not sure what to do. She sort of walks you through what different techniques will do and how different techniques will affect your finished yarns. And then from a fiber perspective, Beth gives you this is what it looks like if it's a 2-ply worsted spun off of a comb. This is what it looks like if it's a 3-ply woolen spun off of a card. She gives you all of those specific things that you need to manipulate the actual fiber. So we're not talking about color here. This book is incredibly I was going to say bland, but I don't mean it that way. I mean more that like all of her samples are cream. So the color, there's no color to distract you. And I think that's really important. She's talking about breeds. She's talking about breed specific yarns and what to do with them. And so for me, I come back to these 3 books over and over and over again. And there's other books out there that are phenomenal, that are great, that as you become more and more interested in different things, and as you become more interested in different areas of spinning, Sarah Anderson's book of yarn designs is phenomenal. JC Boggs Faulkner's book, Spin Art, is phenomenal. I think it's called Spin Art. Respect the Spindle by Abby Frankmont is an awesome book for spindle spinners. Alden Amos's book, the hand spinning, what's it called? The Big Book of Hand Spinning. It's a very technical book. It's not for everyone. There's a lot of great books out on the market, but for me, the 3 that I come back to, and the Fleece and Fiber Source book, if this excites you, make sure that you have the Fleece and Fiber Source book once you've sort of exhausted the information that's in here, because the information that's in here is phenomenal. And if you're still craving more, then the Fleece and Fiber Source book is sort of what you need next. So there will always be more books, but for me, the 3 that I come back to again and again and again and again are these 3. And if you guys have any questions or want to know more about why, or if there's specifics that you're wondering about, please don't hesitate to ask me. In the meantime, we are going to have a giveaway for Dying to Spin and Knit. I know this sounds terrible, but I always want to call this book Spinning to Dye and Knit, and I don't know why. I just do. Anyways, if you can go into the Ravelry group, into the February episode thread, be a member of the group, please, and tell us what this book would offer in terms of rounding out your library, your own personal library, and also at least one book title of what a book is that you recommend, that you use regularly in your spinning repertoire. That would be awesome. So I will leave that giveaway open sort of until into March. And until next time, happy spinning. Bye, guys.